Hi, this is Chris Ruisi, and as many of you know, I'm a business motivational speaker. And I believe that audiences tend to respond better when they're having fun, when they're smiling. They tend to retain more knowledge. I call it edutainment, where I'm trying to educate them, teach them something, but do so in a way that they find it enjoyable because I know they'll retain more. And whenever I give a business presentation, I always have a section that I call the secret stuff. And I get very dramatic and I gather the group around me. I kind of walk into the audience and I tell everybody, close the doors, because what I'm going to tell you now are the true secrets of success. And they're stories about various things. But some of the things that I talk about are animals. Some are in the jungle, some are domestic. And I call this lessons from the animals. Now, I've enjoyed this so much that I've decided not to keep it a secret anymore and to capture the lessons in this video. So let's get started because there's valuable information here for you to use to help you succeed in business and maybe even in life. So number one, the first one, I always ask my audiences, how does a turtle move forward? And people raise their hands, oh, slowly, Chris, slowly. And I say no. And I say one step at a time, one step at a time. And I say no. A turtle moves forward by sticking his neck out. In order for you to move forward in life or in business, you have to learn to take a risk. Enough said on that. Now the next lesson comes from my little furry friend, the skunk. And the motto that I learned from my boss was, you never ever chase a skunk. And why? Because the skunk has fun and you get smelly. So now what does that mean? The skunk could be a distraction. But more importantly, or usually, the skunk is that individual who you know who has the wrong opinion on about everything, but is trying to engage you so that he can argue with you and defend his position, which is really indefensible. Now that's the skunk, that's his approach. So you decide you're going to teach them a lesson. You've now decided to chase the skunk. And those who know you, who are watching, wondering, well, why is Chris arguing with an idiot? The skunk is having fun, and people may have a different opinion of you. And more importantly than that, when you chase a skunk, think of the time you're wasting that you could be spending on other more important activities. So you never chase a skunk because the skunk has fun and you get smelly. There's an actual story out there, I don't know who the author is, but I've used it in other pieces of content, about a story in Africa that every morning a gazelle wakes up and that gazelle knows that he has to run faster than the fastest lion to stay alive. And at the same time, a lion wakes up and knows that for him to stay alive and thrive, he has to run faster than the fastest gazelle. But the point is, whether you're the lion or the gazelle, when that sun comes up, you better be running. So what's the story here? The story is it's very important for you in your career, in your business, to know your purpose. There's no doubt in the minds of the gazelle or the lion, they have a clear purpose to survive. But you want your purpose to thrive. So what are the things that you need to do every day when you wake up? Get to your desk. You need to have clarity on your most important goals. You need to understand where your time is going to go and what you want to accomplish to move your business along the path of its vision for success. Next, I want to talk to you about the wolves. Rudyard Kipling, in his famous book, The Jungle Book, wrote that the strength of the wolf is in the pack and the strength of the pack is in the wolf. What that really means for us as business people is that individual growth and development is directly related to the growth and development and success of the team. Wolves have a very simple lifestyle. All wolves know what they do and what they do best. Some are fun-loving wolves. Some are kind of, getting involved and they cause mischief. Others are the hunters. But all wolves know their roles, they know their tasks. Wolves visualize and live only for success. Failure for a wolf is not an option. The wolf is always looking for ways to leverage his position to become successful. His pack depends upon it. So the strength of the wolf is in the pack, the strength of the pack is in the wolf. As your company grows, remember the wolf. You want to be able to position yourself for every opportunity to succeed when that opportunity presents itself. So let's take a dramatic shift now and go from the wolf and to begin to talk about roadkill. Now there's an interesting subject. Roadkill I learned about from a gentleman named Andrew Sherman, who wrote a book called Road Rules, Be the Truck, Not the Squirrel. Now, in Andrew's book, we learned that every year 41 million squirrels die on the highways of America. I'd like to know who goes out and counts the dead squirrels, but that's another issue. But let's talk about what killed the squirrel. Really, three things. First, the squirrel never saw it coming. The squirrel was so involved in what they were doing, they never were looking over their shoulder to see something coming at them. How often do you find yourself focusing on the wrong things and then something else bad occurs? Now, the second thing that killed the squirrel, they were killed by something faster and stronger than them. Are you really investing in your company to leverage the power of your team while your competitors are doing the same thing? Because if you're not building your team, your competitors are building their team, and they're coming after your market share. And the third thing that killed the squirrel, which was the most important, was their lack of action. They stood there and got hit. How often do you suffer from complacency, legacy thinking, your comfort zone, and you don't take appropriate action at the right time? Don't be the squirrel, be the truck. It's much more fun. Now I want to talk about talent and focus as well as discipline. And let me read you a quote that I've used in various presentations, and it's very simple. Talent without discipline is like an octopus on roller skates. There's plenty of movement, but you never know if it's going forward, backwards, or sideways. And that was by a gentleman named H. Jackson Brown, Jr. I learned from my research that octopuses have 8 tentacles. 6 are arms, and 2 are their legs. I can't tell the difference. I don't know if you can. But imagine what it would be like if all 8 of those tentacles had roller skates attached to them. Imagine what that octopus would look like going in all sorts of different directions. The point here is, you may have a tremendous amount of talent, but if you don't have the self-discipline and the clarity of purpose, what are you going to accomplish? Really, nothing much. Talent without discipline is like an octopus on roller skates. All of us are smart. All of us want to contribute things, but if we don't have the discipline in order to plan our approach towards an objective, we're just going to spend an awful lot of time wasting an awful lot of energy. Now, let's go from the ocean to the land. And let me ask you a question. How do you cut the tail off a tiger? You're probably wondering, Chris, why would you be that close to a tiger? But stick with me on this. Why would you cut the tail off a tiger? That's a very unpopular, very difficult decision to make. Well, my advice to you is if you have to cut the tail off a tiger, you go right to the butt and you cut it off. Here's the moral of the story. Some of us, when confronted with having to make an important decision or a tough decision or an unpopular decision, will either avoid it or will decide to make little decisions along the way. Well, here's what happens. When you make little decisions and don't address the entire topic, invariably it gets worse. Invariably it gets more complex. So if that tiger sees you coming at him with a scissor, that tiger's going to strike back. So when you have to make a tough decision, do it completely, get it behind you, and move on to something more important. There's a book I read once by a gentleman named Price Pritchett called U Squared, a little square sign. And it relays the story of a fly. How many of you have seen a fly trying to fly through a plate glass window? That fly bangs into that glass, he bangs into the glass, his wings are going at a furious pace. So what does the fly do when he can't fly through the glass? He flies faster at the glass, hits it harder and harder, until that fly ends up on the windowsill on his back with his legs sticking up in the air. And the moral of the story here is, how important is it every once in a while to make an adjustment or change? Some of us as entrepreneurs, when things don't go our way, we work harder and faster, but we're still doing the same things like the fly. We have to look for that adjustment. That fly needed to take a step back and look for an open window or an open door in that house to get outside to freedom. The same is true for us. If something you're doing isn't getting you the result you want, then it's time to take a step back and make an adjustment. Change sometimes is better than death. It's better than failing. So make the change when you have to. Be the fly. Find your way outside. Now, going to an animal from the size of a fly, let's talk about a rhino. To be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to have the skin of a rhino. because we're confronted with challenges all day long. We're being attacked from every different angle, maybe not physically, but we have to have the ability to let things bounce off us. And there's nothing that isn't thick like the skin of a rhino. Sometimes you have to not worry about what people may think about what you're doing. If you know what's right and if you know what's your purpose, then by God, follow through on it. Be the rhino. Let things roll off your back and keep pursuing your goals and your vision. And the last lesson that I want to talk about is my favorite because it involves a dog. And in fact, it involves a golden retriever in my picture here. And of course, as many of you know, I have a golden retriever whose name is Riley Rose. So what are the lessons from Riley Rose? Number one, when your loved ones come home, meet them, enjoy their time, show them how much they mean to you. I read once a story that the most damaging arguments in a relationship take place in the first 20 minutes after one of the spouses comes home for work. Appreciate your family members, appreciate your life. Leave the frustration at home. Another lesson from Riley is if something you really want is buried, dig at it, keep at it until you can dig it out of the ground and enjoy its pleasures. We sometimes give up way too soon, way too soon. Another lesson from Riley is enjoy the simple things in life. If you need a change in scenery, go for a ride in the car. I have a good friend of mine who has a convertible. Let the wind blow through your hair. Enjoy life's simple pleasures. We sometimes get so caught up in the hustle and bustle that we miss the obvious. Stop every once in a while, as they say, smell the roses. And that completes my story of lessons from the animals. There's a lot to be said here. I'd like you to review this video periodically because there's always something in here for everybody. Again, you control the quality of the life you want to have. And although simple, they're very meaningful and important lessons that I think will just pay dividends for you well into the future. Share it with your kids. Start them off on the right track.